Okay, so this week we will be going over informative speaking. Okay. Now, informative speaking is really important because it's the most common speech type, and you probably have already done it before. The purpose of this type of speech is to impact knowledge or enhance understanding or facilitate an application of information, come to know an idea or apply an idea or an issue. This is anytime you teach someone something. So if you have a younger sibling and you've taught them how to tie their shoes, you've already done informative speaking. Okay. Now, careers that use this a lot involve, your typical ones like teachers and driving instructors and tour guides, but it also goes into things like nursing, okay, or doctors. Doctors have to inform their patients of what is wrong with them, right? So having strong informative speaking skills allows us to share knowledge, ideas, and issues in every single career field. Now, something very important to understand is that informative speaking is not persuasive speaking, okay? Informative speaking is simply just the information, the facts, and the how, okay? That is the formula for informative speaking. It's fact plus how. As soon as you add the word why, that becomes persuasive. So again, informative speaking is not persuasive speaking. Informative speaking is facts. It's stating credible facts that teach something and not call something for action. So you have to avoid the word why at all costs. The last two bullet points on the screen are test questions. Information plus why equals persuasion. That is not what we want. We want fact plus how. That's the formula for informative speaking. It's what we want when we do informative speaking. Now, informative speaking is very important. It's effective because effective communicators know how to share their ideas without giving opinions. Okay. Informative speaking gives valuable knowledge to others, and teaching is a very important leadership skill as it helps us create new ideas and concepts. Now, how do we begin with an informative speech? We want to make sure that we're not doing persuasive speech. We first want to pick a topic and a scope. Scope is a very important term. It's how much or how little of a topic you decide to give information about. So think of a pirate. If you hold your hands together and you make like a tube, right? And you look through it, if you extend it, the information gets smaller. If it gets bigger, you see more, right? That is scope. It's how much or how little of a topic you decide to give information about. Second thing you do is ask yourself, is the information new to my audience? Is it relevant to them? Or is it useful information? Okay. And the last thing you want to do is have a goal. Remember, your goal for informative speaking is facts plus how. Nothing else. No why at all. When you add why and facts, then you perform persuasive speaking. Our goal should always be fact plus how for informative speaking. So let's talk about goals. Goals are important to know for your speech in advance because it helps you with your organization and clarity. Think about when you're doing your POs and your SOs. You know what information you want to give out, so you have to make sure that it's clear and collective. Now, typical speech goals for informative speaking usually includes providing new information or building on new information. It could be agenda setting, so like setting up a certain thought or a certain idea, but not persuasively. It's just setting up the agenda of here's what we have so far. What can we do next? I know agenda setting gets kind of mixed up with some political terms and whatnot, but for this definition, agenda setting is just saying, hey, this is the information we have. This is the information we need more of. Other typical speech goals, one that would be a little bit more persuasive would be creating positive or negative feelings. Informative speeches do not deal with feelings at all. Now, when do you tell the goal? When do you tell your audience that you have a goal? You tell or you stress the purpose of the goal, the reason why they should listen at the early stages of your speech, okay? It should be within your intro. Now, there are 4 types of informative speeches. There's speeches about objects, speeches about process, speeches about events, and speeches about concepts. All 4 of these follow the formula of fact plus how, and we're going to go through each one of them. So to start, object speeches are speeches about giving information about any object, anything that's tangible, right? So that could be places or structures or animals or people, okay? Anything, a table, a desk, a pen, your iPhone. All of those things are objects. Now, when you do an object speech, you have to be careful of your scope. You have to make sure it's not too broad or not too big or even not too small. So, for example, Nicolas Cage has made a lot of movies in his career, right? There's so many Nicolas Cage movies. That would be way too much to talk about. Every single Nicolas Cage movie would be way too much information for your audience. So you'd want to scope your speech topic down. So maybe you only talk about Nicolas Cage movies from 1990 to 2002, that little golden era with National Treasure. That's the scope you would want. It's a simple little snippet of those objects, because talking about all of them would be too much. It'd be information overload. Now, process speeches. This is the type of speech you'll do in your next speech. This is when you give information in a systematic series or actions that lead to a specific outcome, result, or product. So, for example, how something's made, how something's done, how something works, okay? How to bake a cake, how to pass your driver's test, things like that, how to change your car's oil. Now, with this, visual aids are the most helpful for this type of speech, okay? Think of it like Rachel Ray. Rachel Ray does so well because she does visual aids as she teaches you how to make something. Now, event speeches are anything that has happened, is happening, or is going to happen. And again, the scope should be adequate. Talking about Super Bowls is really large, right? There's been a lot of Super Bowls. But informing just about the Super Bowl in 1995, it's more adequate because it's pinpointed, right? The scope has been scoped down. We talk about one event. Okay, so maybe you want to talk about Coachella. It's way too much information to talk about every single Coachella that's ever happened. But maybe you just talk about Beyonce's performance at the 2018 Coachella. Okay, you scope it down. When we don't scope things down, we end up losing the attention of our audience. And that's really important to have when we teach, right? Especially when we teach concept speeches. So when we go into concept speeches, it's really important to have our audience's attention, because a concept is a belief or a theory or an idea or a principle or notion that's going to be new to your audience, okay? You want to avoid technical language. You want to make sure that you define terms clearly and use examples and comparisons to illustrate. So for example, conspiracy theories is a type of concept, right? You'd want to avoid technical language, define new terms, and use examples and comparisons to illustrate. Think about also if you were teaching Newton's law, right? You would want to define what velocity is or what gravity is, and then go into how it works. Now, there's 3 hallmarks of an informative speaking, okay? You need to be thorough, you need to not be boring, and you need to get organized, okay? We're going to go through each of these hallmarks to understand what they mean. So by being thorough, I mean that you're checking all the boxes and leaving no answers behind. So when you first start your speech, you're going through your speech as you develop it, you're asking yourself, what might someone ask at this point in my speech? These would be like comprehension checks, okay? We have to have a comprehensive knowledge of the topic to be careful to not assume the audience knows what we are talking about. Just like you'll see, as you saw in the video with the little kids and the dad, right? The dad was trying to pretend that he had no comprehensive knowledge of how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. But we know he knows. But he was trying to test his child's ability to give informative speaking skills. And as we saw, when a speaker leaves things out, such as defining a term, it makes the speaker lose its credibility, and it's distracting for the audience to follow the information being shared. Always be thorough, always check the boxes to make sure that it makes sense as you go. So why not be boring? Always choose the right topic for the audience and don't be too technical. When you do this and you get too technical, you often tend to lose your audience's interest and your message has no impact. So always do your research beforehand. Find out who the audience is, what they already know, who's going to present the info or build on knowledge they already know, right? And then you need to ask, do they need to know or is it neat to know? So when you're writing your speech and you come up with facts and whatnot and ideas and terms and examples to explain this information, you need to ask yourself, is this need to know information or is it neat to know? Effective speakers know the difference between need to know information and neat to know. Sometimes you'll need to give need to know info because it's significant information to understand, right? So as we see in the video, the children needed to tell their dad, right? It was a need to know what peanut butter was or how to scoop peanut butter out of the jar. And the difference between need to know info, which is typically just interesting stuff that adds a little like sparkle or sprinkles on an ice cream, okay? Those are things that you want to put in your speech after you give the need to knows. So just be creative. Make sure that your audience is consistently interested and it's effective and thorough. Now, how do we be organized? Organized means to use a strategic organizational pattern or system to achieve a goal. Now, there's 4 ways you could organize an informative speech. The first one is speeches of description. This is spatial ordered, like describing Disneyland. There's Tomorrowland, there's Fantasyland, there's Adventureland, okay? And then there's speeches of demonstration, right? This is like Martha Stewart or Rachel Ray, and they show you chronological order, like how to build a sandwich. And then there's speeches of exploration, and this depends on the topic. So for example, if you're doing electricity, you would maybe organize it by exploration, and you'd be like, how does electricity work, right? And you could start with, okay, first there's a zap, and then there's something else, and then you hit the light switch, right? Or you could do it topically. This is, blue electricity, and this is red electricity, and this is computer electricity, and this is battery electricity, and so forth and so forth. Okay, so you can either do it step A to Z or 1, 2, 3, 4, all different. And the last one is speeches of revelations. These are topical patterns like the food pyramid, right? We have our vegetables, we have our meats, we have our grains, we have our healthy fats, and so forth. So their takeaways are, you always stress the purpose of your topic at the beginning. This is your goal. You be objective. You determine the need to know and the need to know. You know your audience, what they already know, what info you're going to give. You never give opinion. You always want fact plus how. When we give opinion, we are doing persuasive speech, which is what we do not want. Okay. Lastly, we're going to keep it fun because it keeps our audience interested. We're going to be thorough because we always want to be credible. And we're going to get organized as soon as we can because it helps us deliver our speech the best. And it helps us determine how to give that information the correct way. So go ahead and move on to the next step of your assignments, and I will see you in class.